There's been mixed emotions across the world about the death of Hugo Chavez. Longtime critics have had different points of view about the dictator's death. Some of them look at it as an opportunity for change. Allies from Ecuador, China, Iran, Cuba have expressed their sorrow and solidarity for the deceased president. Now, Bolivian President Evo Morales says that Chavez was someone who gave all his life for the liberation of the Venezuelan people. In fact, Canada's Prime Minister Warren came in on a different side. Stephen Harper encouraged the people of Venezuela to build a brighter future for themselves based on the principles of freedom and democracy. Welcome back. And you're watching video of mourners who crowded the streets today remembering a leader. It's the leader who died from a battle with cancer. A lot of comments tonight from people all across the country about Hugo Chavez, including right here in Florida. Now, you can say and post your comments on this developing story on our Facebook page, Bounce TV Tallahassee, facebook.com/Bounce TV Tallahassee. You can be a part of the conversation. But we also want to find out what's going on in other headlines around the world. And for that, we'll go to our newsroom with Mika Highsmith, who will be telling us what's happening at 11. Mika? That was Maggie Lake reporting. Now, with Chavez's death and the fact that the country has been exporting oil for so long, the question is, should we use this opportunity to explore that more here in the U.S.? And with our chief science officer, but chief meteorologist, Casanova Nurse. Casanova, there are a lot of bills. Obviously, right now, we've talked about the legislature on yesterday, and we know that finding those fossil fuels and natural resources is something that has been a long time coming. And, you know, legislators saying we should drill off the coast, we shouldn't. Well, now, with political instability in our fourth largest oil supplier, what should we do and how does it affect the environment here?
It's somewhat of a tough scenario to put into the Gulf oil collection and the development of some of the rigs out there. Now, there are some policies in place that have been in place ever since the 1980s because of previous developments which carried a little extra risk, and there were some accidents, one of which was off the California coast back in the 1969 timeframe, and that put on a moratorium, basically a ban of offshore drilling within 200 miles of American coasts. That ban, or the moratorium, was still put in effect, especially around the Gulf region. However, more than 200 miles offshore, there was active drilling, and there is today. That ban was actually lifted to a certain extent in 2008 by President George W. Bush. So after that occurred, there have been more development, more production of oil, even closer to the American coastal areas, and particularly in the Gulf. There are still some places, especially off the coast of Florida, where the moratorium is still in place, and our Eastern Gulf ban remains until the year 2022. But as many of us recall from 2010, the Gulf oil spill from the rig off of the Louisiana coast, there are some environmental hazards. Even though the technology has changed between 1969 and now, and even between now and 2010, there's still that little bit of concern, and that's still part of the reason why some of the ban remains off the Florida coast.
Do you think now, with the political unrest that's going on in Venezuela and them not knowing what exactly will happen, if they do drill more, let's say that they in Venezuela and become a larger oil producer, how does that affect the environment as a whole, like the worldwide ecological system? Because Venezuela is a very important player in that system.
It really is, and it seems like the main trend has been for perhaps safer production. Maybe some of the technology that has been discovered here in the United States can be distributed to other areas, especially in Venezuela, if they are willing to accept it.
And they were doing some really key stuff in ethanol production, which was a safer. Is ethanol a way that you see maybe us going that could make things easier in the United States?
Ethanol is already widely used. It's about making up 10% of the gasoline that we consume in our vehicles, and there is a chance that we could see a little more development with that. Even in other sections of South America, Brazil has a source that comes from sugarcane, and it's a main driver in their energy sources, and it's helping to make them what would be called energy independent without having to depend so much on petroleum imports.
Now, since we're talking about petroleum and imports and obviously drilling off the coast, fracking is something that, can you give us a bit of a detail on, because that's something that people are saying, well, now Venezuela, we may not get as much oil, we still need to run our cars, we need to start fracking. What exactly is fracking, and is it harmful to us, to our environment?
It's basically a process, in the simplest terms, that goes deep down underneath. It uses chemical reactions, so to say, and some heavy-duty equipment to extract hard-to-get oil. It's not just like putting a tube down into a well and then letting it gush out. There's actual physical processes involved in the extraction of that hard-to-get oil. And there are some concerns that some of the chemicals used in that process can contaminate groundwater and the soil, and that's the main key point that opponents usually make when expressing their dissatisfaction with moving into a fracking sort of method to gain more energy.
It really could hurt the environment, but in a case where we need to run our lives, it may be necessary.
Yeah, it's pretty active, especially in the northern plains. North Dakota is one of those areas where new sources of extractable oil has been found, but this new technology is being used to get it out of the ground, and there's more development into making it a little more safer and more environmentally friendly.
Well, thanks so much for bringing us up to speed, because I know that's one of the main concerns that everybody has had is, will the United States still have enough oil, with Venezuela being one of our top producers? Thanks, Cash.
All right.
Now, losing a leader, no matter what kind, according to public opinion, affects us all. Next, your best life, how to move on when the head of the state is no more. We'll be right back. Today, as people in Venezuela mourn the loss of their leader, there are those around the world who celebrate Chavez no longer being in power. And although him being in power changes the political landscape in the world, a man still died. Someone's father, someone's son, someone's friend. There are those like Representative Joe Serrano of New York who looked beyond the rhetoric and tried to see the man. The representative said from his Twitter account that Hugo Chavez was a man who understood the needs of the poor, who tried to empower the powerless. Now, I'm not saying that we have to agree with all of his views, but now that he is gone, try to find the good. There's got to be good somewhere. Finding that good where there seems to be none is another key to living your best life. Now, don't forget you can join us behind the scenes to be a part of the conversation. All you have to do is log on to bouncenews.tv or on Facebook. Like us. Come on, Bounce TV Tallahassee. You can also follow us on Twitter at Bounce TV Tally. We'll be right back.